our third Sunday looking at Nehemiah. You may have cast your mind back, if you can, to 2 Sundays ago when we had a history lesson, and we worked out that Nehemiah was right at the tail end of, nearly at the tail end of the Old Testament, through all the things that happened from Abraham, through Moses, through coming to the Promised Land, through having a kingdom, 2 kingdoms, and then through having the people of Israel going to exile. Almost 140 years after that, we've got Nehemiah's story, Nehemiah's situation. And Nehemiah is not even like, second generation, third generation Israelite in Persia, in exile. He's way beyond that. 140 years. When you think what that means for him and for the people who are living there, you think back and you think of some of the folks who came over from the West Indies to this country. Maybe it's going to get on for nearly 70 years soon since the first people came over, maybe. Is that right? Or maybe 60 something. But this was 140 years. Now, I think people might have forgotten an awful lot about what life was like in Israel by the time of Nehemiah's life. So I wonder if you cast your minds back to last week as Sandra was sharing with us from Nehemiah chapter 1 about prayer, about the walls that have been broken down in our society, the walls of behaviour, codes of godly conduct and values and laws. They've just been broken down. They've just been cast to one side. They're in rubble around us, and people are reaping the consequences of that. Our young people are reaping the consequences of that. And we were talking about how God calls us to begin to build up the walls again, to begin to rescue people, to begin to see lives restored and our community rebuilt. That's the message we got. And overarching everything last week was the message, pray, wasn't it? Pray. That's what Nehemiah did right at the beginning of his ministry. The beginning of his encounter with God that led to his action. And Nehemiah, as we read chapter 2 of this account that he wrote, is approaching his Esther moment. Anybody know what an Esther moment is? Could you describe it to me? You want to describe what was an Esther moment? Anybody got a good snappy way of putting it? Gora, what's an Esther moment?
Being bold going regardless of the consequences.
Okay, yeah, that's a snappy way, I suppose. Being bold regardless of the consequences of it, reaching that moment when your life could be forfeit, but you know you have to do something. When there are terrible consequences, perhaps on one side if it goes wrong, but you know you have to stand up for God. So Nehemiah was going to come to the king. He'd asked God to give him success, favour when it came before the king. So for him, if it went wrong, bringing displeasure to the king, the Persian king of this empire, could have very serious results, and Nehemiah might not live the day. It was a bit like going up to Dragon's Den. Everyone familiar with Dragon's Den? Program on telly. Where you take your invention or your product or your idea before a panel of experts who have the power to actually make you a success or not. It's a bit like going to Dragon's Den with an idea, and either they accept it and they fund you and you're successful and prosperous in what you want to do, or you die. Now that's not exactly a great choice, and I think many people probably wouldn't go to Dragon's Den, but they find another way to get their idea to the market if that was the choice. So let's read from Nehemiah chapter 2. If you've got your Bibles, turn to Nehemiah chapter 2. If you go past Kings and Chronicles, you'll find Ezra and then Nehemiah. Nehemiah 2. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me, "Why does your face look so sad when you're not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart." I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, "May the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" The king said to me, "What is it you want?" Then I prayed to the God of heaven, And I answered the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favour in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it. Then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, how long will your journey take, and when will you be back? It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. And I also said to him, if it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of Trans-Euphrates, so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah. And may I have a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the royal park, so he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel by the temple, and for the city wall, and for the residence I will occupy. And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my request. So I went to the governors of Trans-Euphrates and gave them the king's letters. The king had also sent army officers and cavalry with me. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard about this, they were very much disturbed that someone had come to promote the welfare of the Israelites. I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding on, and by night I went out through the valley gate towards the Jackal Well and the Dung Gate, examining the walls of Jerusalem which had been broken down, and its gates which had been destroyed by fire. Then I moved on towards the Fountain Gate and the King's Pool, but there wasn't enough room for my mount to get through. So I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. And finally I turned back and re-entered through the valley gate. The officials didn't know where I'd gone, or what I was doing, because as yet I'd said nothing to the Jews or the priests or nobles or officials or any others who would be doing the work. Then I said to them, you see the trouble we're in? Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. They replied, let us start building. So they began this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us. What is this you're doing, they asked. Are you rebelling against the king? I answered them by saying, the God of heaven will give us success. We his servants will start rebuilding. But as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem, or any claim or historic right to it. Nehemiah. Nehemiah squashes so much into a few sentences sometimes that you just have to read between the lines. You have to look and see what's going on. Let me give you some examples. As you've been reading there, you've heard Nehemiah talking and recording what happens. Look back to chapter 1, verse 4. When Nehemiah first spoke to the brothers from Judah, to Hanani and his friends, this is what he said. This was his reaction to hearing what was happening firsthand in Jerusalem. As soon as I heard these words, he said, I sat down and wept and mourned for days. And I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven. This wasn't just a kind of casual interest or something that Nehemiah thought, oh great, I'm going to start myself up a hobby. I'll see whether we can get the walls in Jerusalem built up again. When he heard this first-hand experience from his brothers who'd come, and they related to him, probably with passion and with tears, what had happened. What happened? He says he didn't just say, oh, that's a nice idea, see if we can help you, I'll go and talk to the king. It wasn't like that. It says, I sat down and I wept and I mourned and I prayed for many days. You ever had news like that? Yeah, we know we've had news like that. Well, we can't stay on our feet, but we are so moved that we have to do something. And, one wonders why news like this would affect a man like Nehemiah so much. Why did it grip him in this way? And I believe that this was because it was a conviction from God. It was a conviction from the Holy Spirit. And when you're convicted by the Holy Spirit, you are moved deeply to the core of your being. And as it says in Acts, when people first heard about Jesus, they were cut to the heart. And they begged the apostles. They said, oh, what do we do? What do we do? We realise now that it's our sin put God's Son on the cross. And we see how much he loved us, but we're in trouble. And they knew because the Holy Spirit was speaking to them. They had that conviction. You know, Nehemiah had grown up in Persia. So all this business about the gates of the city of Jerusalem being burned, the walls and the whole of the city in rubble, it wasn't new. He kind of knew about it. He'd grown up knowing that this was the case. He grew up with it as something that was always there in the back of his mind. But seeing an eyewitness sparked something in him that let the Spirit of God change his mind and convict him. And that's what God does. That's what God does. He was able to empathise. He was able to see what was happening. And I wonder what the tragedies are, what the injustices are, what the things are that move us. I wonder what the things are that are going on all around us that we've grown up with, we've grown used to over the years, that no longer move us. It's a difficult question, isn't it? Because they're not moving you, you won't be interested in them, you've forgotten about them. What are those things that are happening in our community, in our world, that no longer move you? But they're actually tragedies, they're actually all around you right now. They're happening in the lives of your neighbours and of your friends and your work colleagues and your family. But you've kind of grown used to it over the years. And so you think, well, there's nothing I can do. Maybe there are too many things. And we just think, well, I'll shut it out of my mind because I can't do anything about it. Maybe it's things like children caught in the war in Syria. And while it's on the news, it moves our hearts to do something, but then we forget. And it's one of those things. Well, that's just what's happening in the world, isn't it? That's just how it is. Maybe it's the things that Sandra spoke about last week, the young people who are caught up in a trap, a self-destructive cycle of behaviour because they have no rules, they have no laws, they have no guidelines, they have nothing to keep them in God's way. Well, Nehemiah's reaction was that heart conviction that we need. And maybe when you get to talk to somebody, when you get to know somebody who's going through something, that's when God has an opportunity, a window opportunity to say into your heart, look, you can do something about this. Why are you not more moved about this than you are? Why are you so complacent? Listen to what God is saying. Listen to what the Holy Spirit is putting on your heart. Don't fight against it, but allow him to speak to you, allow him to convict you. I wonder if he's doing that right now. I've had 3 conversations this week with people who God is convicting one way or another, to one degree or another, about particular needs that there are in our community. And they're wondering, what can I do? What can I do to help? How can I play my part? So Nehemiah's reaction is summed up in just those few words, but actually you've got to realise that the whole consequence of the whole book, if you like, all that happened afterwards, mean that was a really deep conviction. That was a really deep change of heart that he had at that point. Another thing is his prayer. Nehemiah's prayer and fasting. He says, for days I prayed and fasted. He's a master of understatement. He may well have been praying and fasting for up to 4 or 5 months in that little line, because when you read from the beginning of chapter 1 to the beginning of chapter 2, he heard the news in the month of Kislev, chapter 1 verse 1, which is kind of November, December time, as much as we know. And then he went to speak to the king in our chapter 2, in the month of Nisan, which is probably a period of 4 months, maybe 100 days or more. In March or April, he went to speak to the king. So this was Nehemiah's time of waiting, his time of prayer. It was over 100 days. Well, for days I prayed, and I mourned and I fasted. Over 100 days. And finally his journey. He says, I went to Jerusalem. I went to Jerusalem. Now, actually, it's probably about 55 days of journey and 1,000 miles. And he had to take an armed guard with him in order to be safe, he had to get permission. He got all those papers to talk to the governors of the Trans-Euphrates region. He was going to cross across all those rivers and through all that territory to get to Jerusalem. So look out in Nehemiah, because he's great at recording things, but sometimes you have to read between the lines to really understand what God was doing and the impact of God's word, God's Spirit on his life. So if God is speaking to you in some way, let it mature. Give it unhurried prayer. We're not very good at this, are we? I'm not very good at this. But let me give you an example. According to The Guardian last year, an article in The Guardian, there is a kind of arms war going on in what we might call upmarket restaurants over this. Anybody heard of this? Well, apparently about 3 years ago, the record was set for steak being aged over time in order to make it taste better. 459-day aged steak was served in California at one particular restaurant, and they hold the record. Would you eat steak that had been aged for 459 days? Apparently it tastes much better. Don't know. But you can, in this country, get 100-day aged steak in certain restaurants, and they're competing because it's a new fad. It's a thing they want to do, and you've got to pay a lot of money for it. I'm not sure we go quite that far, but sometimes we do need to allow the conviction of God to mature in our hearts. Most of us wouldn't bother to wait that long for our steak. If I had to wait half an hour, then I'm probably getting impatient and I want my steak and my chips pretty quick, please. Sometimes we're like that with a vision that God gives us or an idea that we've got, aren't we? I can't wait. I can't wait that long. I've got to do something about it now. Sometimes we hurry to get it done before we change our mind, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but maybe it's not the conviction from the Holy Spirit if you change your mind that easily. Sometimes we hurry to get it done in case we just put it on the shelf and leave it until it becomes so aged that it's full of maggots and nobody's ever going to touch it. And that idea has gone away again. We need a matured sense of what God is doing in us. Why don't we bring it to the King of Kings? If He's said something to you, bring it to the King of Kings, the Lord of your life, and have that in-depth conversation with Him. Because we're working for Him and with Him. We're not working in isolation from Him. It's not our work, it's His. Did you get that? You're not the boss, He is. So if our vision, our conviction is really from Him, then He will cause it to mature as we speak to Him. And when we go to Him, we will realise that actually He put the idea in our heads in the first place. Yeah. This is verse from Philippians 2. Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only as in my presence, much more in my absence, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Sometimes it's great having an idea, but we have to work it through. We have to work it through with fear and trembling, really going back to God to check it out and to see what He's got to say. For it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for His good pleasure. God gave you the idea if it's from Him. And so He worked in you right from the beginning so that you would want to take up that idea, whatever it might be. So if God's given you an idea, and it really is from Him, give it some time to mature. Perhaps God's calling you to teach in a Sunday school or to be a helper in a Sunday school. Start praying about it. Maybe God's calling you to be a YouTube video publisher so that this sort of recording can get onto YouTube and reach those who can't be here and others as well. Maybe you think, well, I know I should be reaching out and befriending kind of newcomers in our community, but I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. Pray about it. Not just a kind of token prayer, but deep, unhurried prayer. Setting aside time each day over a period of weeks so that you can really know whether God has called you to this. And go and ask other people. I don't want a situation where you come to me and you say, hey, I've got a great idea. I really feel convicted that this is what God wants me to do. I'm going to start up this rescue work for whatever. And I would say, have you prayed about it? And he'd go, oh, yes. And what you mean is, just before I came out, I said, God, I've got this idea. I'm just going to see Pastor Tim. Is that okay? Right, okay, let's go. It's not a tick in the box thing. It's let me see what God is saying. Let me have a conversation with him. You know, that's what we're doing about renewing our building, renewing our ministry, renewing what we do here, our vision as a church. That's what we're doing. We're giving it time. We've been going for quite a long time, in fact from 2011, but over this 6 months where we are seeking God, we're actually giving it time to say, Lord, will you show us? We believe this is from you. We believe actually you worked in us, that we would desire change, that we would desire your will. But you show us as we move through this time, as we do our bit, as we have this conversation with you, you show us. We've got some ideas, we've got some pictures on the wall over there, but God, you show us. You develop it, because we know it's only if you build the house that it's going to stand. Let it mature. David prayed this prayer. Teach me your way, Lord, that I may rely on your faithfulness. Give me an undivided heart, that I may fear your name. Teach me your way. That's the prayer to pray. So if you've got an idea, you've got a conviction growing in your heart, asking this. Teach me your way so that I can rely on your faithfulness. So it's not all about me, but it's about relying on you and knowing that you are the one who's going to take me through this. And give me an undivided heart, so I'm not just sort of bouncing backwards and forwards between different options and going, oh, I don't know, oh, maybe this is what I should do, maybe this isn't what I should do, because that's not going to help you. That's not going to help you. You need to ask God to give you an undivided heart so you're focused entirely on what he wants. Hopefully you won't need to go for the full 459 days, like the aged stake, but like Nehemiah had 100 days, and then he was ready to take action. Sometimes we feel we can't afford to wait. There's one teacher said, waiting time is not wasted time, is it? It's not wasted time. Sometimes God works in this way. Unhurried prayer has impact. What was the result of Nehemiah's prayer? First of all, he has boldness when he goes to see the king. He has boldness so that he's able to open up to the king. He's able to ask for everything that he needs. He's not stuttering, he's not stammering, he's not saying, well, I'm not sure, well, maybe I've got this idea, and tongue-tied. He's got boldness to speak directly to the king. This is what I need. This is what I need. Let me tell you what's on my heart. I'm not afraid. He has a clear strategy, verses 11 to 16. Very, very clear strategy on what he needs to do. He tells the king exactly what he needs to do. He has a clear vision of what he's going to do when he gets there. He explains it to the people very clearly, very succinctly. He finds unity amongst the people that he goes to, so that they're then working together. He's not on his own. And he has the strength to face opposition. Did you see that? So although these guys, Tobiah and Sanballat, they're against him, they're putting pressure on him right from the beginning. We don't want you, what are you trying to do? He's able to say right from the start that he knows exactly what their place is. They have no part in it. You've got no part in this. And he stands up boldly, strong, to them right from the beginning. He draws the line, the barrier, to say, you're not going to cross this line. You're not going to be part of what we do. I know what I'm here to do. That was the result of his prayer. And that's what we need, isn't it? Mature the vision so that we know we're bold, we have a clear strategy, a clear vision. We are able to work with others in the same unity of mind, knowing that we're all working together. And we have the strength to face the opposition and difficulties when they come. He knew how and when to approach the king. I don't know if you notice, again, it's this thing of understatement, isn't it? He was waiting maybe for the right time. In fact, the month in which he made his move was the month of Passover, when all those years and years and centuries ago, God had delivered his people in Egypt. Maybe that's why he waited for that time. That this was going to be a new deliverance. This was going to be God in Nehemiah's life and his people's life, once again delivering them. And if you remember when Esther approached King Artaxerxes' father, so Esther was before Nehemiah, she carefully picked her moment. Look at Esther chapter 5. She got ready, she picked her moment, and using God-given wisdom, she maximized the chances she had of success with the king. And she approached the king and waited for him to extend his golden scepter as a sign that he would listen to her request. Would he accept her or would he reject her? He accepted her. She waited for the right time and the right moment. And she prayed before she did it. And she called on the people to pray and fast with her until she went. It might seem when you first read Nehemiah 2 that Nehemiah just happened to get that kind of God-given opportunity by chance one day. But when you read it a bit closer, you can see that he did probably the same thing as Esther. This is what I believe anyway. Because in all those 100 days, he hadn't had a sad face, and yet behind the scenes he was mourning, and he was weeping, and he was praying before God, and he was fasting. But when he went before the king, he didn't show that sad face, because if you showed a sad face when you were supposed to be serving the king of Persia, then you were bringing your own business into the king's court, then it could be big trouble for you. And he didn't want to do it till the right moment. But then after 100 days of just showing his normal face and smiling in the king's presence, all of a sudden he's like, here's your wine. How could he do that? That was a sign to the king. That was a sign. Nehemiah showed his grief. He showed what was going on because he knew that would cause the king to question him. Some people have said, well, do you know, actually it was near the Persian New Year at this time. So there were traditions, and we don't know, it doesn't say. There were traditions that the king would grant a request to somebody on his birthday, which might be celebrated around the New Year. So maybe that was why he was waiting. We don't know. But he was very clever and careful in choosing his moment when he would look sad before the king in order to initiate the conversation, and then so on and so forth. He chose the right time. And he must have been, well, we know what Nehemiah's like. If we look at the rest of the book, he's a man of action. So through those 100 days, he must have been itching to go, I've got to do something about this. Maybe ask the king today. Today, Lord, give me a chance today. Today, Lord, today. But he waits until the right time. Wait until the right time. And God will show you when it's coming. He also chose his words very, very carefully. In verse 3, he, instead of saying straight out to the king, oh, well, you know, the walls are broken down, the city's in ruins, so we let them go and rebuild them. He actually says, will you let me go and rebuild, because the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins. And that's a key there, because the Persians were very, very, very hot on what you did with your ancestors, where you buried them and respecting them. So the idea that the city where his ancestors were buried was in ruins and disgrace would have appealed to the Persian mindset. So that's another reason why he said that. So he carefully planned what he was going to say. Desecrated graves would touch the heart of the Persian nation. It's a man that very carefully planned out what he was going to do. That time of prayer over those 100 days was definitely a time of planning as well as prayer. So there was careful planning and passionate prayer together. And those two things do go together. Sometimes we think they don't. Sometimes it's common for a leader to grasp a vision and feel that, well, the practical details are really not something I should bother with. God's given me a vision. Let's just go for it today. Let's do it tomorrow. And God will do the rest. Just step out. But in most cases, there's nothing unspiritual about planning. Prayer and planning don't have to be exclusive. Nehemiah was a project planner, a project manager. He had both things, so that when the time came, he was ready to move with confidence. In a way, he'd grown into the vision that God had for him, so that he was ready to be used. In the notes that we're using in our home groups, you'll see the little story about D.L. Moody, the famous evangelist, and how he was on a ship travelling by ship when a fire broke out, and supposedly one of his fellow passengers suggested that, oh well, Mr. Moody, why don't we go and pray about this fire? And he turned around to them and said, well, you can go and pray, brother, but I'm going to man the water buckets. There's a time to pray and a time to put the fire out. Which was quite practical, isn't it? We need to be sensible about what God has called us to do. So if God's calling you to do something, pray and plan. Pray and ask God, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do it? Because as he convicts you, just as he's convicted you of the need, he'll convict you of the means and how you should go about it. And it might not be as straightforward as you think. So, what has God called you to do? Let's go through this. Just jump to here. When you are praying, will you be ready for the moments, like Esther's moment, like Nehemiah's moment, when she had to go before the king, when Nehemiah had to go before the king? Sometimes when we're sharing our faith, we're not ready. Sometimes we come to a pivotal moment, a moment when we have the opportunity to share, but we're not actually ready to do it. And although Jesus said to his disciples, when you're persecuted and you're dragged before the governors and the kings and various other people and the priests, don't worry about what you're to say, because the Holy Spirit will give you the words. I don't think he was saying for a minute, be lazy and don't be ready to share your faith. In fact, in 1 Peter 3, we've got this amazing verse that says this. It says, but in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behaviour in Christ may be ashamed of their slander. The Holy Spirit works with us, you see. So if you're ready when that moment comes, then you'll be able to give a better account of your faith. You'll be able to use that moment in a way that will be more helpful to God's plans. Being prepared means having a clear idea in your mind of how you share the gospel, of what it means to be saved. And you could use something like the 4 points that we use at the Walk of Witness at Easter time, or Good Friday. So you know those 4 points of that God loves you, the picture of the heart, that I have sinned, the cross that way, that Jesus died for my sins, the cross that way, and that I need to respond to God, and I need to turn from my sins and follow him, which is the question mark. Will you respond? Something like that that's in your head, so you're ready when people ask you. Being prepared means praying for your friends and family and being guided by the Holy Spirit for the right moment. Being prepared might really mean living a lifestyle, demonstrating a godly, loving character, demonstrating those walls in your life so that people can see how you behave. It might mean keeping literature with you, so you've always got something to show people. We've got these little booklets at the back, which are all about knowing God. This is a little green booklet. It's very, very simple. You can take one of those with you. Always have it with you in your bag. You can join something like a Scripture Gift Mission, who produce stuff to give away with Scripture in it. Or perhaps bridge builders, who supply Gospels and encourage you and help you to find ways to share with people. Be prepared. Maybe there are times also when you need to challenge the system, maybe at work, maybe at school, maybe anywhere where things are not right, and you know you've got to stand up and say something. Be ready for that moment. Pray before that moment comes. Sometimes we need to respond to a conviction about a very difficult decision. Sometimes we need to make a commitment to a calling, act on something that God's told you to do. Maybe we need to put a bit of time into praying before we respond. Maybe it's giving. Sometimes we find it hard to do because giving can be very, very difficult. Giving can be challenging when we've got not got much to give, or when we've got a sense. That's interesting. I wonder where that's gone. Maybe there are times when we have the wrong spirit and we're not giving in the right way, and we need to come to that point of conviction where we know that giving is something we're doing to love God, something to do in obedience to him, something to show him that we love him, and it becomes a joy rather than a chore. Maybe you need to give your heart to the Lord. As we were saying earlier, maybe you come to that point where you know, you're cut to the heart, you know you need to follow him. You know Jesus has died for you, but you've never given your life to him, and you need to do that. Maybe you need to take a step of obedience, like getting baptized or becoming a member of the church, and you just haven't been able to get to that point, and yet God is convicting you. Pray and do it. Pray and do it. We've got one final lesson from Nehemiah, and that's that you don't need to walk alone. Through all that preparation, through all the things that he did, through that journey, just in those last few verses, again, master of understatement. What did he say? What did he do? Well, he got the elders and the leaders and people together, and he explained how gracious God had been to him and the vision he had on his heart. And unlike church meetings maybe, what did they say in answer to all this? Well, they replied, let us start rebuilding. 4 words. I'm sure there was more than 4 words when they responded to him. I'm sure there was a lot more excitement. I'm sure there were a lot of discussions and debates as well. But Nehemiah records it simply, let us start rebuilding. But he knew then that he had the people with him. He knew they had to do it together. In fact, God's agenda ultimately wasn't just to see the city rebuilt. He wasn't just interested in walls and bricks and mortar. He was interested in the people working in unity and acting in unity together to build this community of salvation, a kingdom of priests to bring his love, to bring his message, to bring his blessing to the whole world. That was his plan. But to start with, they needed to build the walls. To start with, they need to rebuild the city. They need to get the gates in place. They need to have that security. They needed to show that they were God's people with a message and a plan. That's God's plan for today, for us too. So just the act of getting together with one mind to give, to work sacrificially, to see practical projects like the Beacon Centre come into being, just going through that process is one of the means that God uses to build us as a community, to show us how to give sacrificially, to show us how to work together, to show us how to commit our lives and our energy and our minds and our time to his work. And that's what he's doing. And then the wall kind of fades into the background later in Nehemiah, which we'll probably look at later this year. It was just infrastructure. And that's what the Beacon Centre is to us eventually, whatever shape it takes. God's ultimate aim is to build us, to build you together as a people. God's ultimate aim is to see Handsworth, maybe parts of Birmingham, or wherever he calls us in the world, touched by us. Touched with his love, his blessing, his salvation, so that lives can be restored and that communities can be rebuilt, can be changed for his glory, so that the walls will be built up again. We're told that in Ephesians 4, Paul said it so beautifully, that the body of Christ is built up and reaches maturity when? When each part is working properly. Read Ephesians 4, 11 to 16. We're also told that 2 are better than 1. You know that verse? It's always quoted at weddings, isn't it? But actually it's about us as God's people. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward. Ecclesiastes 4, 9 to 12. A good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. It goes on to say that a 3-fold cord is not quickly broken. If God's put a vision on your heart, share it with like-minded brothers and sisters in church. Even if it's just to share with those who pray with you and give you wise advice. And then work together. Do it together. Don't try and be a one-woman band or a one-man band, because it doesn't work. You won't see the fruit that God has for you. Join with each other. Ideally, each of our fellowship groups should be working this way, each having 2 leaders, not 1. That's what we're aiming for. Each working together to reach out to the community in a particular way that God has called them to do. So pray. Pray for our leadership team. Pray for the Beacon Centre project team. And pray about the vision that God's put on your heart, whatever it might be. And let's reflect, because in years to come, someone could be looking back, say, 10 years, and they say, maybe in January 2018, do you remember Beacon started a debt counselling scheme? Do you remember Beacon started a counselling service? Beacon started a compassionate ministry of some sort. And it might be just as short as Nehemiah's statements. Beacon did this. But we know that there was a lot of hard sweat and toil and hard work and prayer behind it. Huge effort planning what we would do. But all they'll see is that God moved and God worked and God built. And that's where we want to get to. I want to give you something. Right behind you on the shelf, Janet, there's some, on the left there's some little things with a picture of a wall. I'd like to hand them out, if you could. If you take a pile, give some to the she can give some out too. When you get your leaflet, if you don't have a pen, there are some pens here.
Scan has been completed.
Oh, thank you. That's nice. There are some pens as well. The idea is that if there's something on your mind, something you have on your heart, that God is perhaps calling you to do, you just think, maybe it's just an inkling. Will you make it your Nehemiah prayer this week, next week, the week after, as long as it takes to see what God is doing? If anyone wants a pen, there are some pens. And you can write that on the inside. Maybe it's just that you've got friends that you want to pray for. A few pens here. Not guaranteeing these all work. Maybe you've got friends you want to pray for, and you can write their names there on that first page as well. Just choose 3 friends and begin to pray. Sorry, hands gone away again. Begin to pray for them. I don't know if they work. So if you can write something down now, that's great, because you'll take it away and won't forget to do it later. Or else take it away with you and write it down later. And just slip that bit of paper in the back of your phone, in your wallet, in your Bible, somewhere where you'll remember it. And each day, give God some time with this. Whatever it is your Nehemiah prayer. It might not be at the moment you've got anything particular on your mind. You might be doing some kind of ministry already. Pray for that to be enlarged. Pray for a vision for it, so that it will be really from your heart and not just something you do out of habit. What is God saying? What is He doing? Take a moment to write that down. Okay, as you're writing down, I'm going to just pray as we do this. You keep your eyes open if you like. I'm going to pray. Father, as we think about Nehemiah's faithfulness as an ordinary guy who was moved by your Spirit, I want to confess there are times when you've spoken, times when you've said to us, this is what I want you to do. This is something that's on my heart. This is something that I weep about. This is something that I sent Jesus to die for. And Lord, we've kind of parked it on the shelf. For whatever reason. Maybe we've said, it can't be me, Lord. It must be someone else. And times we've said, Lord, I'm too scared to do this. Or it's too big for me. It's too uncomfortable for me. I can't do it. It's out of my comfort zone. It's out of my skill area, Lord. Whatever you're saying today, pray that you will cause it to mature and to grow in our hearts. Holy Spirit, will you open up a conversation with us about the things you want for our lives, that we may find a purpose, that we may find those good works that you have planned for us from the beginning of time, that we may be the people that you intended us to be. And for those who are facing that Nehemiah or Esther moment right now, God, give them your courage, give them your grace, give them your boldness, that they will be courageous in stepping out and facing that challenge. Lord, you've taught us so many things. You've begun to speak to us about the needs of our community. You long for so many lives to be restored, so many people to have their families rebuilt, to prosper and to go forward in life, to be free from the enemy's trap. So use us, so convict us, so bring us into contact with those who will change our hearts. So, Holy Spirit, change us. That we may look back in 10 years, 20 years, and we may say, God began a work in me. God began a work through Beacon that has changed this community. God began to shine his light in. And we thought it was small. But he's done great things. Lord, that's what we long for. Be glorified through your church. Well, each of these things that we've written down, be glorified through them. Bring them to harvest. Bring them to fruition, we pray. In Jesus' mighty name.